How many people have you brought into tabletop RPGs? Once people figured out that I was a dungeon master, and not the dirty kind, I had so many coworkers and other friends ask me if they could come try it out. A lot of them had seen D&D played on shows like Community and The Big Bang Theory, so they had some idea of what to expect. They knew that they would play a specific character in a fantasy world, that they would roll some dice, and that they'd have fun playing around and playing pretend. So I've had a lot of people come to the house here over the years to introduce them into my hobby. And some of them have gone on to be dungeon masters themselves, and not the dirty kind, at least to my knowledge. But I think that we've all had at least one new player who had really high ambitions. When told that they needed to create a character, they wanted to be a dragon, because of course they did. Who would want to play D&D or Pathfinder as a dragon? And most of us would say, well, you can be a dragonborn, or you can be a lizard folk, or a kobold. It's not exactly a dragon, though. Well, there is one man out there, one expert at role-playing games, who decided to make those dreams come true. Mark Seifter has been working on the Pathfinder design team at Paizo since 2014, and he was the design manager for the team since 2020. He was hired by the Roll for Combat team this year to write third-party content for Pathfinder in D&D, and his first book is a doozy. It is a dragon ancestry book that will allow you to play as an actual dragon in Pathfinder and D&D. They are producing a version of the book for each system. And there are 45 types of dragons that you can play as, from the chromatic and metallic dragons that you're used to more esoteric ones like nightmare dragons and astral dragons and apocalypse dragons. Well, I got my hands on the Pathfinder version of the book, and it is the most comprehensive ancestry book that I have seen, and Mark somehow managed to balance it with all the other Pathfinder ancestries too. It didn't hurt that he had a hand in designing all of those other ancestries. So today I wanted to bring him in to meet you and to talk about this amazing book that he's put together. So let's get back to the table over there and get him on the line. And while I'm doing that, it is a great time to check the link below the video here and check out the sale going on right now at Hit Point Press for their bundles of Deck of Many animated spell cards. These tarot-sized reference cards for 5e make playing a spellcaster so much more efficient and fun. If you're looking for a gift for the player or the GM in your life, you need to check these out, and they have 2 bundle sales going on right now for $20 off each. Check them out at animatedspells.com or use the link below the video so they know that we sent you. And now, Mr. Mark Seifter. Mark, welcome to the show.
Thanks, I'm glad to be here.
Congratulations on getting your book out. How does it feel that now that you can see people getting their hands on it, starting to play their ancestries? Is that exciting for you?
Yes, I definitely have been thinking about making this dragon book, or I guess a smaller version of this dragon book, for a long time. And it's really exciting to see it come to life, and just like how much bigger and more expansive it is than what I had originally thought it was going to be.
Tell us a little bit about the story about how the book came to be.
So after Pathfinder 2nd edition came out, like one night I was thinking about the fact that you need sort of some people who are very experienced and are well known in the game system to make third-party products in order to like sort of kickstart the third-party scene. And I thought that I kind of wanted to do that because I worked on third-party products for Pathfinder 1st edition before working at Paizo, and that the product I would make was a dragon ancestry, because of the fact that the ancestry rules and the archetype rules made it so that you could do some pretty amazing things, which I thought about right then, like, you know, like the month or so that the game came out. And I was like, yeah, that's what I would write. Probably maybe with the chromatic and metallic dragons. They're pretty famous. And then maybe could write like small expansions with any other family, one family of dragon at a time, if it was popular enough. But eventually I just didn't do it because of the fact that I would have to get layout software. I would have to learn layout software. I would have to order a lot of art that would be so expensive that I might lose money on it. And so I didn't do it for years. And after the RPG Superstar contest, the first one that was with Roll for Combat, we had made, or Roll for Combat had made Battlezoo Ancestries. And that was a product that had all those RPG Superstar monsters, and I was hired to write a monster part system for the back. So Stephen Glicker, the owner of Roll for Combat, was saying, okay, well, what's next? Because he wanted to do another RPG Superstar eventually, but he wanted to know what's next other than that. And I said, well, here's this idea I have for a dragon thing, and we could do it as like a PDF add-on with like these 10 dragons, and then you could maybe do it so stretch goals, add like another family of 5 dragons or something like that. And he's like, oh, okay, I see what you're saying. Actually, how about we'll just do all of them? I was like, okay, well, that's going to be longer then. That's going to be like 50 pages. That's pretty substantial. He's like, okay. So then I looked at the Kickstarter. It was like, dragons, hardcover. I was like, hardcover? I thought it was going to be like 50 pages. He's like, no, I think it can be a hardcover. So I was like, okay, well, that's really good, because a lot of these dragons don't have very much information about them. Sometimes in the dragons that came from Pathfinder First Edition, sometimes they'll have like 2 sentences, and sometimes the sentences don't give you much information. And occasionally there'll be a second edition version that does much better. Like, for example, the Forest Dragon in First Edition, it was a chaotic evil dragon with a climb speed. And the only things in the lore was like, it is capricious and malicious. It lives in the trees and likes to climb through them, or something like that. It was like, great. I could see that in the stat block. Now, there's some great lore for it in Pathfinder Second Edition, which was helpful and added more to it. But just sometimes it'll just be like lunar dragons. They come from outer space and they like to watch humanoids. It's like, okay, that gives me something to start with, but it's not necessarily a lot. So hearing that I suddenly had a lot more pages made me think, okay, so we can add a extraditional lore. We can add a horde of power system into the we can make that sort of a stretch goal. And so we added additional stretch goals, and it eventually wound up being like 136, 132, one of those two number of pages long, which is certainly a lot longer than I thought it would be.
And there are so many dragons throughout Pathfinder lore, all the way tracing back all the way to First Edition. Are all the dragons that you've introduced in this book, and there's what, 40 something of them?
45 in the book.
45.
39 of which are from Pathfinder First Edition.
And are the other ones, were they introduced in Second Edition, or are these new inventions of your own?
They're new. So Pathfinder Second Edition has 20 of the 39. These are all true dragons. So not dragon turtle, not wyvern, not linorm, not fairy dragon, but true dragons, the kinds that have young and ancient and theoretically have wormlings and great worms and all of those kind of things. So Pathfinder Second has 4 of the families of 5 dragons. But Pathfinder First additionally had some families that aren't. It had the outer dragons, which are 5, like almost every other dragon family. It had the esoteric dragons, so that's 10, and the other 9 to make up the 39 were the planar dragons, which started with 5 but then got 4 more, so it could fill out all 9 of the alignments on the outer planes. But those are the ones that were from Pathfinder First Edition, but not Second. The 6 new ones are the wild dragons, which are dragons that are sort of new, and they have a bigger place in the setting of Alucard for Battlezoo, but they're very easy to add to any world that you want. They're just a family of dragons that are a little bit more focused on certain sort of more wild aspects, and they're more likely than some of the other types of dragons to be PC dragons as well. And then we've added the Toadstool Dragon, which is the only current member of the Leshy Dragon family, which could potentially get more dragons down the line if we ever expand.
That's so exciting. I love that. I think that the Leshy Dragon too, that was Jenny D helped with that one a little bit.
Yeah, Jenny D created the Toadstool Dragon for us. And that's absolutely right. And then we realized, hey, this could be a whole family of Leshy Dragons.
Oh, you have an opportunity for a sequel book, I suppose. So,
yeah, certainly.
I guess a lot of us game masters who've been doing this for a little while we try to introduce new players to the game by saying, oh, this is a game where you can kind of be anybody and do anything. And then I can't be the only one who has had players say, oh, well, then I want to roleplay a dragon. And we as game masters have to say, like, well, that's kind of tough. And so you've managed to pull it off here. And there's a section in the book, a sidebar, I think, where you talk about how much work you did to balance these dragons out versus the other ancestries. So I wonder if you could speak to that and the efforts to keep it balanced while still retaining that dragon feel to the characters.
So yeah, I think the sidebar you're talking about might be one where it's like, hey, if you want to change the power level, here's how to do it and keep them keep them in lockstep with other characters rather than just be like, well, we're changing it and making them stronger and dragons are just stronger. Because there definitely have been adaptations that I've seen before where the dragon is just like, we know this is more powerful. Maybe it counts as two characters in your party and it's just better than everyone else or other things like that. So the basic way I went about it is just by using my, I guess, deep knowledge of the Pathfinder ancestry and archetype systems from having, like, I don't know, done a design pass on to every ancestry that Paizo put out. That doesn't mean I wrote them all. That means I did a pass on them all after someone wrote them, and I wrote some of them. And having, created the first archetypes in the core rulebook, a lot of the idea and direction for where we would go with them came from brainstorming and especially Jason Bowman, but I wrote the ones that were there at first. So when I'm talking about these early days with the core rulebook, it's fair to say that I also had I guess a lot of knowledge and understanding of those things just already from having designed them and having thought about them when I was designing them. So I would say that I just used that. I didn't do anything special other than that, but that is pretty special already, maybe. And I took a look at how ancestries were normally built, and I just said, okay, we're going to build the dragon to those standards. But one of the things that was important in balancing it wasn't even mechanical balance, because that, if you understand the mechanical balance, you can do it, but it was lore. Because you want to deliver a satisfying experience. Another thing I've seen, not in a published dragon, but maybe in some homebrew dragons or other ancestries, is just it was roughly balanced, but there was no explanation for why any of the things were happening with the ancestry. So it's okay, but why am I getting to be gargantuan in maybe 2 months of the campaign going on when normally a dragon takes thousands of years to become a great worm dragon? And so it was really important to come up with a story that it didn't seem like it was just an excuse, but that it felt like it was natural and it supported everything that happens with a PC dragon. The good and the strong part about that makes you stronger than other dragons, and the part that makes you maybe have some disadvantages at first compared to other dragons, so that you won't be completely busted as a character.
Mm-hmm. Have you heard any feedback yet from some of the players who have started playing these characters that you've put out here in the book?
So the players who have been playing it seem pretty positive about it. The play testers were extremely positive, and everywhere I'm seeing people talking about it, they seem pretty happy, and that makes me happy, because as a game designer, I don't design games to throw into the void. I guess the best feeling is when people like it, when they're playing it and they just really enjoy it.
That's awesome. And I know that a lot of folks, especially folks who watch this channel, a lot of them maybe come from D&D, and Pathfinder can seem a little bit intimidating. And then one of the tools that's out there for people creating characters in Pathfinder is the Path Builder website. And you have your Dragon Ancestry, but the information is on the Path Builder website, correct?
That's right.
Can you tell us a little bit about what that website, what kind of tool it is and how it can help folks and how they can use your ancestries there to kind of try them out?
It's a free character builder. You can pay a very small amount to unlock some of the features that aren't in the regular version, but it's perfectly functional either way. And it's in there. So like when you do the character building, as long as you've got rare ancestries turned on, because if you're not familiar with Pathfinder, there's the common, uncommon, and rare in there is talking about actually how rare it is in the setting. It's not a power level like it is in D&D 5e for items, and obviously dragons that perform the special ritual that makes them advance at the same rate as a PC are pretty rare in the setting. So it's rare. So as long as you've got rare ancestries checked on to be shown, then when you go to pick your ancestry, which is akin to a D&D race, if you don't know what an ancestry is, and you've gotten this far in the interview, you're like, what is that? But when you go to pick it, and you scroll through, you'll just see dragon. And then it'll say like third party on it so that you know that it's from Roll for Combat and not from Paizo, although it's from me. So like a lot of them are gonna have a little bit of my touch either way up until this point. But you click on it, and then everything you build up from that point is just in there. So it's just the same thing as if you picked Kobold, to use an example of these plushies that are in this meeting with us.
And I was going to ask you too. What's really amazing about this book is that you've created this 145, 160-page book here about one ancestry. The dragon is the only ancestry in this book, and everything else is built around the heritages, the archetypes, the feats. And I was wondering if you could just touch on how these Pathfinder 2 mechanics of an ancestry, how they've kind of made the framework here for you to build this whole entire book with just one ancestry.
Absolutely. So the main difference between an ancestry and like a D&D race is that ancestries have feats that let you pick what abilities you're going to get, rather than just getting a few abilities at first level and leaving it at that. And so that means that I could create a bunch of feats. You actually wind up with 5 different levels of ancestry feats in Pathfinder. So could create a bunch of feats for that. Then some feats that are only possessed by, say, green dragons or blue dragons or red dragons. And then I created the archetypes, which give you class feats. Those are a little more similar to the regular feats in D&D 5e if you were trying to create a parallel, whereas the ancestry feats are more like giving you racial abilities, but just across an entire span of levels that get stronger and stronger. So these archetypes will let you, instead of taking feats from your fighter class, which are selectable benefits, you could get one from Draconic Ravager and go into a Draconic Frenzy, or make your breath weapon do some weird thing that's special for your heritage. So it winds up, when you have 45 heritages, and each of them has like 3 to 6 unique, or maybe not unique, but like unique to a small subset of them for feats, then you wind up seeing a lot of feats just from that. But there's also a lot of feats that everybody can take. And so when you add it all together with a lore section that gives a full page of information about each dragon with a piece of art. So it's not like a huge number of words for each dragon, but it's still, like I said before, more than some of the dragons got when they only had 2 sentences. And you quickly wind up with a lot of information, and you wind up with a book that I feel like a selling point is how little, in terms of different things, are in this book. Because normally when you have a 132, 136 page book, it's gonna, and you heard it was about dragons, you can play dragons, you might be like, oh yeah, and 4 pages are dragon backgrounds, and they have the dragon speaker that says you talk to dragons, and so you have diplomacy and you group impressions, so you can talk to lots of people, because if you can talk to a dragon, you can talk to lots of people. And like, whatever, it's fine to have backgrounds. I'm not going against books that have backgrounds, but having those, or like, here's some magic items with a picture of a dragon on it. A lot of books have fill things out with stuff that's vaguely on theme, just to give you say that it has some spells and some items and some backgrounds. But this book kind of knows what it wants to be, which is the most deluxe ancestry ever written.
Yeah.
And then it does that.
Absolutely. And there's people, if people are watching at home and they're really excited about trying this out, but maybe they haven't tried Pathfinder Second Edition before, do you have recommendations for getting started with the game in general that you can impart to us? Yeah.
Yes. So you won't be able to play a dragon from day one, but if you haven't played Second Edition, and especially if you feel like you might be intimidated by it, you should check out the beginner box, because Second Edition is, for some people, is easier to run and handle than even D&D 5e. For a lot of people, if you're a player, 5e is going to be a little bit simpler because you don't have to pick things when you're building your character as much. So it's much easier to plug and play. But for many people as a GM, Pathfinder Second Edition is easier. It depends on your play style. If you don't like reading to find things, but you do like making on-the-call GM decisions about complex situations, and then either like writing them down or just doing it differently the next time, then 5e is probably easier to run as a GM. Whereas if you'd rather not have to make on-the-fly GM adjudications, but you're okay with referencing things in a book more, you'll probably find that PF2 is easier to run. That being said, if you're intimidated at all, you should probably check out the beginner box. So the beginner box uses the same rules as the regular game, except certain aspects of it have been simplified for you. And by which I don't mean that anything that it has in there is wrong or different. It works the same way. It's just that some options are just not there. Or for character building, sometimes they're combined together. For example, in an ancestry, as we mentioned, the dragon ancestry has 45 heritages. A normal ancestry, that as it's starting out, might have like 4 or 5. And then you would pick one of those. So it's like, I'm an elf. Maybe my character is a forest elf, and then as my heritage, and then my first level elf feat is elven weapons, so that I'm good with longbows, and you pick from a big list. While in the beginner box, we are, like, in some cases, I paired those up. So you pick one thing at first level, and it gives you basically both a heritage benefit and a first level feat benefit that are appropriate and that kind of work together. So there might be one that actually is the combination of the forest elf and getting the bows. And you don't get to pick them separately, but you also don't have to pick them separately. There's fewer choices, and there's fewer separate choices, and there's fewer things to look at. Plus, like in the core book, there are 7 ancestries, and in the beginner box, there's just a human, elf, and dwarf. So, like, when you convert to the full game, you'll find that you have a perfectly viable character, and if you decipher what the options are, that it's like, oh, this would have been just made with wood elf and elven weapon familiarity. But so it's a legal character that was much easier to build. And just certain skills and actions that are like kind of downtimey, or you might not need in a simple starting game, just might not be listed in there. And it makes it simpler and shorter, and everything that it has is correct. It's just that there is more in the game. And it makes it way easier to pick up because it's a brief little booklet instead of like this enormous tome.
Right, and then after you finish the beginner box, there is the sort of staircase up through Troubles in Otari, which will also kind of walk you through a little bit more simplistic, but a little bit closer to a regular Pathfinder adventure path. And then that, in some ways, leads into Abomination Vaults, which is more or less a traditional Pathfinder adventure, right?
It is. I mean, Troubles in Otari is just a series of short adventures, so it's not really an adventure path, but everything else you said about it is spot on, and it's designed for people just coming out of the beginner box in the same little town of Otari. And Abomination Vaults is an adventure path, just straight up. There's nothing about it that is different than a regular adventure path, other than it is set in Otari, the same town as the beginner box. This also means that if you're watching this video in the future and you've played the 5e version of Abomination Vaults and you love the town of Otari that appeared in there, that if you get the beginner box for Pathfinder 2nd edition, your players can play in that same town that they've already played in before because they're set in the same place.
Exactly. Mark, are you ready for our lightning round?
Lightning, yes.
Yes.
Blue
okay,
dragons are always ready for lightning.
There you go. So I've got a couple of shorter questions and shorter answers, and just to kind of maybe get at some of your things that you're really interested in and just your off-the-cuff opinions. So if you are ready, we will get started.
Let's do it.
What, outside of the dragons, what is your favorite ancestry in Pathfinder so far?
My favorite existing ancestry in Pathfinder.
Yeah.
Well, oh gosh, there's so many that are really good. I'm going to pick Leshy because of the fact that they got so many popularity memes. So that made them just something that's kind of an ambassador for Pathfinder 2nd edition. Plus, Linda wrote them. So
Yep.
I'll pick Leshy today, but if you ask me tomorrow, it might be something else.
Exactly. That's the point of the lightning round. We just get your whatever's at the top of your head, and it might change tomorrow. Do you have a book recommendation for folks who are game masters, like a book that you've always read that you've drawn inspiration from for running adventures or existing in a world like Galarian or the other worlds out there?
So, do you mean a fiction book or like? Because like if you mean like a game book, my suggestion is the Game Master's Guide because sometimes people feel like they can skip the Dungeon Master or Game Master's Guides when they get a tabletop RPG because sometimes they're just filled with like, oh, this is the same advice that there is in every Game Master's Guide book that'll say that like players break into the following categories, and like those are good, especially if it's your first time reading it, which you never know if it is. You kind of need those, but Pathfinder 2's Game Master Guide does not spend much time on that and spends a lot of time on giving extremely helpful information, tables, and tips to help you create your own content and like subsystems and variants. So I personally, and I'm not biased by the fact that Logan and I wrote like nearly all of the book while we were the only people on the design team, but maybe I'm biased, but I think that it has a lot of highly useful information for a game master who is planning on running their game. Just in general, look at Game Master and Dungeon Master Guide. Like the 5e Dungeon Master's Guide has doesn't have a lot of that stuff that I was saying, like about it's short about how to build your own content, and it doesn't really have a huge number of subsystems and variants. It has some variants, but it does have a lot of inspirational tables of like, oh yeah, what about your campaign setting? Here's a table of different ways that can be set out, and like, or like random tables and charts that I find really cool. So if you go through different Game Master and Dungeon Master guides of different games, I think you learn different skills.
That's a great answer. Who is your favorite fictional villain from movies, books, anything?
My favorite fictional villain.
Yeah.
Let's see. Gosh, there's a lot of good villains, but I guess I will go with David Xanatos from Gargoyles. He's pretty cool. And he used to have a TV trope named after him until they just changed it into like generic Gambit instead of Xanatos Gambit, or whatever they call it now, something Gambit. I think they took off a lot of the names of characters on TV tropes because they were like sounding too specific. But he was great because he always managed to get a little something even when he lost his main thrust. So as a villain, growing up, like, you know, if I watched like He-Man fighting Skeletor, you almost feel bad for Skeletor, even though he's an evil skeleton who wants to probably kill everyone and take control of the country, because he tries really hard and comes up with creative ideas and just fails constantly, completely at every moment. And he'll be like, I'll go back in time to destroy this before it comes here with a wheel that can't be stopped. No, I'll just spin it faster so it blows up now, or whatever. He just stopped completely at all moments. Whereas Xanatos, he credibly loses. Like, his big plans, they don't work, but he always is like, okay, well, but I set it up so that even if I lost here, I get this other thing too. And so his plots advance, so he feels like he's still doing something. And like, he works with the heroes when he needs to, or when their interests align. Like, when his son is in trouble with the Fae, then he works with the heroes for that. So I feel like it's an inspirational character for people who want to think about a villain as a person, and a villain who can lose while still feeling like they have some momentum.
I love that. Folks here who watch The Gallant Goblin know that we cover a lot of minis, and there's a lot of amazing art in your Dragon Ancestry book. Looking at these dragons as the Pathfinder classes. You know, there's a dragon who's like an investigator with a little magnifying glass.
Oh yeah, it's the Cerulean Dragon Investigator. That one's great.
If you could get one of those pieces of art, one of these dragons, made into a mini, which one would you want to see made into a mini?
Oh gosh. Are we gonna go realistically, or just pie in the sky?
Yeah, pie in the sky. Which one would you love to see as a mini form?
Because realistically, I would say getting a Wild Dragon Cleric is realistic, because there already is a mini that you can get on Battlezoo.com. There's a set of 8 minis, one of which is a Dragon Cleric, who's one of the iconics for the upcoming adventure path.
Yeah.
But pie in the sky, let's see. I mean, the Investigator is actually is a contender. And maybe the Inventor that has the little tiny golden dragon, that would be annoying for them to make as a mini. It would probably have to be perched on the dragon's shoulder or something like that. But you said pie in the sky, so
yeah. They have little invisible bases. Yeah.
Yeah, let's go with the Inventor, actually, just because it's got that tiny little golden dragon construct that's around with it.
It is super cute. Do you have, just in your mind today, one of your favorite Pathfinder adventure paths? First edition or second edition?
All right. So second edition, my favorite is Strength of Thousands. Yeah. And that's not biased by the fact that it was the only one that I helped with the rules as the design lead for on purpose from start to finish. There were several others where you'll see me as design lead. It's always came before Strength of Thousands. That's always, though, because of the fact that a coworker left the company and I picked up the adventure path partway through. Strength of Thousands was my first one that I worked on as a design lead, but that's irrelevant to the fact that it's my favorite in Pathfinder second edition. I just love the theme. I love what's going on there. In first edition, there are a lot of really strong ones, and I ran a lot of them in first edition. Compared to second, I haven't had as much time, and I've been playing more than running. But I probably want to say War for the Crown in first edition. I know it's not as popular online as some of the other ones that I would put in the top, but for me and my group, it was just very, very on point for the kind of themes and adventures they wanted to run and the stories that we wanted to tell. And so, yeah, I feel like Crystal on War for the Crown of Ron on Strength of Thousands did a great job.
Love it. Why do you love Pathfinder?
I love Pathfinder because of the fact that it lets people get together, tell stories, really customize and make a lot of decisions about their characters to personalize the character and to make them feel distinct and let they have a personality, compared to some other games where like the mechanics don't do that. Like, you can if you're creative and you write a lot of like a big giant backstory about them, but with Pathfinder, you feel like the mechanics are inspiring you in a way that's synergistic for me. And I know some people are like, well, no, you either have to be about rules or you have to be about the flavor of your character. But for me, they kind of sing when they work together. And that's something I wanted to do with the dragons. And that's something I feel Pathfinder does especially well.
And do you have any projects that you're working on now for coming out in the future that you're able to talk about right now?
Well, right now I'm finishing up a pass on the Jewel of the Indigo Owls, which is the last of the 3 books that were in that first Kickstarter. Those being Battlezoo Bestiary, which I mentioned, is the one with the monster parts. The dragon book that we talked about for this interview, and Jewel of the Indigo Isles is that adventure path 3-parter that's in a hardcover book, and those are the 3 coming out on that Kickstarter. We also have had another RPG Superstar since then, so that's going to need its own Kickstarter. And Steven has mentioned in the updates that there's mystery projects that are going to show up for that one as well. And some of that stuff in the mystery is going to be really wild and potentially more ambitious than the Dragon Book even, which was fairly ambitious. Yeah. So I'm very excited about that, but I can't tell you what the mystery stuff is. But I will tell you there will be a Battlezoo Bestiary Strange and Unusual for the RPG Superstar Strange and Unusual.
Love it. We'll have to get Steven back on later on when we had him on for the first Kickstarter. We'll get him back and see if we can poke him until he tells us some secrets.
He and I did like a giant media tour for the first Kickstarter. It was pretty intense. It was pretty great. And I think it was helpful. So I have no doubt that when the second one comes in that he and I will go and talk about it.
And if folks want to follow you and see all the projects you're working on, what's the best place for them to find your stuff?
Well, I am on Twitter as just Mark Seifter, my first name and my last name. It doesn't exactly have all of the stuff I'm working on. It just has random tweets, a lot of which are saying that my Twitch channel is going online, which is twitch.tv/arcanemark. I also have a Discord server and the Twitch and the Discord server for me and Linda Zayas Palmer, and the Discord is at tiny.cc/arcanemark. So those are all pretty good places to check me out. Probably the Discord is the easiest one to talk compared to Twitter, where there's like a character limitation and the algorithm will hide everything, or Twitch, where it's more of like, what is the stream topic about today?
Perfect. And do you have any final thoughts you want to leave us with about your Ancestry book here?
Well, I'm very excited about my Ancestry book, and I hope that viewers are excited too. And at the current moment that we're taping this, there's a Pathfinder 2nd edition version, but D&D 5e version is getting converted right now. So for viewers who are 5e viewers, you will have that version in your hands or as a possibility at some point in the future. So that's something that I realized we didn't mention, but could be something exciting for your viewers.
I had completely forgotten that y'all were converting these to 5th edition. So that's a
whole
other conversation.
Already has been. And dragons they're in the midst of conversion process. As I'm working on the Indigo Isles, we have a crack team of converters who are doing some of the initial conversion. They've shown me the framework and it looks strong. And then I'm going to do a pass on it after that. And Steven will lay it out and we'll get it out. So it's, it's coming out for 5e. I think that's a good thing to mention by the end of the stream.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll make sure that we'll mention that at the beginning of the video too, so everybody will know. And you can find all the information. We have links down below the video here if you want to go check out the Battlezoo site and all the fun projects you'll put together. But Mark, congratulations on getting your dream out into the world in a way that was even larger than you had thought it would be. That's an amazing accomplishment.
Thank you.
I'm so proud of you.
This is actually my first book where I am the only author who wrote anything in it. Usually a lot of people at Paizo who have written as much as I have, or even who have written a lot less than I have a sole cover credit somewhere because of the fact that they've written an adventure or like for somewhere. But I don't like drawing maps. And so I never did. And so this is my first sole cover credit, and I'm very excited about it.
Congratulations. It's an amazing book. I can't wait for more people to get their hands on it and start playing what everybody has always wanted to do, is play a dragon. And so now they can. So congratulations, and thanks for coming on the show today.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me, Theo.
Many thanks again to Mark for coming on the show. The Pathfinder version of the book is on sale now for $35 for the hardcover and the PDF, and $25 for just the PDF. It's available for free on pathbuilder.com at the link below the video. It's also on Foundry VTT for $14. The 5e version of the book is expected to be available this summer, and the hardcover books should be shipping in the next couple of months as well. The 5e books are the same price as the Pathfinder one, so let me know what you think of it in the comment section down below. And again, don't forget to check out the sale going on right now at Hit Point Press for their deck of mini animated spell cards. Each card features unique animated art and all the 5e spell details that you need. These cards make playing Caster so much fun. You can get $20 off their starter packs of lower level spells for a limited time. It is a great way to get started and a great gift for the D&D player or the DM in your life. Go check them out at the link below the video or at animatedspells.com. And thank you for watching today. Subscribing to the channel and liking our videos helps us out a lot, and it helps keep Wash and the other kitties fed. I think they're off looking for food right now, actually. Our Cobalt Plush Kickstarter is all done, but we will have our pre-order store open soon if you want to get some huggable kobolds for yourself. In the meantime, you can always find me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And if you're headed to Paizo Con, be sure to come by and say hi. We'd love to see you. For now, though, stay safe, have fun, love each other, and I will see you next time at the Gallant Goblin.